is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to just say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that in advance, because guess what, guys? When you leave us a 5-star review, that lets everybody know in the world that we are great. And why would you want to keep that a secret? I mean, I just don't understand. Like, come on now. Share the good news. All right. Well, today is Tuesday, and a lot of interesting things are going on in the NFL as far as we got cut day coming up in the afternoon, and we had a couple of leaks already. We'll talk about that. And now, obviously with Drake London, having the injury issues, he had his first catch in the Falcons uniform, and starting to getting a little concerned about his availability for the New Orleans Saints. We'll talk about that. And I think the master plan that Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith came up with, it is starting to work. And last but not least, and for the culture, Trey out here working with the chef, getting cooking lessons. We'll talk about that. But first, we got to talk about Drake London. Obviously, he ended up getting his first catch against the Detroit Lions, and he came up a little lame, and we haven't seen him since from a practice standpoint or in any games. And I think that when you talk about a first-round pick, actually, getting that amount of action in the preseason, is he going to be ready for the New Orleans Saints on September 11th?
Yeah, one would hope that is the reason that they have kept him out of practice and out of games so far. We're talking about 18 days and counting since the last time we saw Drake London on a football field moving around in game day action or practice action, if you will. So, and again, that's us seeing him. Now, who knows? He might have been on the side and we might have missed him, but for the most part, we wasn't really seeing him practicing in these last 18 days. So yeah, hopefully they are being precautious. There is a precautionary measure for them, and they're just making sure that, hey, with some of the injuries that we know, the issue that he had already come in with when he was drafted on that same leg, by the way, that right ankle, that right knee, if you will, maybe they're just trying to be precautious. But I will tell you, Jarvis, it does concern me a little bit, because as you're starting to install the game plan, and as they were starting to open up the playbook for Desmond Ridder and even a little bit more for Marcus Mariota, well, one of your playmakers, maybe your second playmaker in command behind Kyle Pitts, wasn't really there. So, yeah, I just think wish you could have him there so that he won't have so much rust. He'd be much more able to hit the ground running in week one.
And the thing, the funny thing kind of about that, like, was last year we didn't get it. We saw Kyle Pitts for one play in the preseason last year. We were like, all right, the first round pick comes around this year. Yeah, we get a chance to see Drake London, and never mind, he gets hurt right after the first play. But I mean, Arthur Smith was asked about Drake London, and from what we gather from him, being that it's almost like squeezing juice out of a lemon, trying to make lemonade when it comes to get information from Coach Smith. But he did say that everything seems to be on track, is what they're expecting, and I think that him being out, for like 18 days, like you mentioned, I think that has something to do with it. So, go ahead and get healthy. Go ahead and continue to work out. Get in that playbook and understand what's going on and what you're up against as a rookie wide receiver coming into the league. And I think that they'll work them in accordingly. And I don't think that, there'll be a situation where, they're going to put him in a position where he can't be successful. And I think, like you said, I think they're going to kind of maybe spoon feed him a couple plays here and there if he's ready to go against the Saints.
Indeed. And when we speak of being ready to go, Dave Online is probably a place where you should be ready to go. Now, listen, if you're like many of us, you are excited that maybe there will be some student loan relief in your future, but if that's something
Need
that's
that.
not in your future, or if that's something that's not going to give you the relief that you need instantaneously, because we know that's going to be a minute before we actually see results, then you go to Dave. That's where he can help. And that's really because, like a friend of mine has always said, there's no stress like financial stress. And maybe if you need to borrow a little cash, you can do that with Dave. This is a banking app that you can use. It can help you to get $500 instantly with extra cash, and there's no interest, no credit check needed. So millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief that they need with extra cash. You can do the same if you're in a pinch. Download that Dave app. That's a helping hand for the future you. Now, from the App Store right now, or at least after this show, you can go and look for DAVE. That's Dave. Sign up for an extra cash account. Again, get the $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, you can go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. And again, your future you will thank you.
Yes, they will thank you. So yeah, go and get some help. If it's out there and it's there for you for the taking, go ahead, get that help so you can get back on track. Followed by Dave. Now, speaking of getting back on track, Deion Jones is a guy that the Falcons need to get back on track. Whether that be in a Falcons uniform or is it packing his bags and getting him shipped off to somewhere for some late round draft compensation. I think there was a couple of options that I think the Falcons want to go ahead and take advantage of. But
Yes.
T, I think one of the things that, when you think about Deion Jones we talked about, kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday as far as the usage, right? And I think that one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that they were using him in third and pass situations on third downs, and even went into the second half of the game playing special teams.
Yes.
Now, when you look at, I went to Spotrac and I started looking up a couple of things, and I saw that, hey, Deion Jones is on the hook for probably about $9.6 million or so from a salary, and he has a dead cap hit of about $20 million.
Yeah.
Now, based off the things that I just listed, this is the former guy. There was a guy who was considered the best linebacker or young and up-and-coming linebacker in the NFL at some point in his career.
Yeah.
From a usage standpoint, does it make sense for them to have a guy like that being used as a specialist? Does that make sense to you, T?
Well,
do those two things go together?
According to the 49ers, it makes perfect sense because that's pretty much what they're going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. So there
good
are
point.
moments where you know that the trade market is not what you want it to be. The 49ers found that out the hard way, and they figured, you know what? It's cheaper to keep her, as in him. So they decided, hey, in case Trey Lance goes down at some point during the season, we at least have him, and maybe we can reconvene this at a later time. And then, of course, they put some incentives in that contract in terms of him being able to basically walk away and walk away unscathed. Could be a similar situation with Deion Jones, where the Falcons have just not heard that right offer. So it's better to just put him out there as they can to show that, hey, at least he's still healthy, right? And
Right.
then when that offer comes, whether they do any type of restructuring like a Jimmy G, or whether they finally get the offer that they need or want, then yeah, you definitely will move on from him. I still believe that this is a showcase and that they're still looking to move on. But if you don't, and you know that he does not fit the scheme because he's not the build of the Lorenzo Carter or a Rashawn Evans. He's not the build of, those guys that you're looking to really shore up in your linebacker core, then
Right.
yeah, you put him in special plays and still get something out of him if you have to keep him this season.
And that's the thing, right? I think that the biggest thing in all of this, right? I know a lot of people, love Deion Jones for the
Yeah.
reasons that I mentioned earlier about
Mhm.
him being one of the best young up and coming linebackers at some point during the season. He started dealing with injuries or what have you.
Mhm.
But I think that the Falcons told us, they told us what they were doing. They basically moved on, and from a scheme standpoint and
Mhm.
from just a personnel
Yeah.
standpoint. The guys that they brought in, the guys that they drafted this year, the
Mhm.
guys that they pointed out on the roster that were already on the roster when they took over and said, you know what, this is the guy that I feel that can be our play caller. Dean Pease said that about Michael Walker. Those are his words, not mine. And I think that when you look at that particular situation, it's just like, all right, it was just a matter of they weren't able to find what, like you mentioned, they weren't able to find on the trade market what they were looking for. So I think right now, as you said, you put him out there, you show that he's actually healthy, and I think at some point, like you mentioned, Deion Jones will not be on this roster because I don't see him for 17 games being a third and long specialist and playing special teams. I just don't see that in Deion Jones' future in the Falcons uniform. But T, speaking of future, how about this? Later on tonight at 7:20, the Braves will be taking on the Colorado Rockies. Yay! Max Fried's going to be on the mound. The ace is going to be on the mound. So, hey, we have something to look forward to, right?
Absolutely, for a couple of reasons. Number one, like you said, Max Fried, the Magnificent, is back on the mound. 8 innings in his last outing, 1 run, about 9 strikeouts, 1 walk. I mean, just doing the darn thing. So, yeah, love to see him back in. And also, Jarvis, this was where everything started to turn for the Braves back in June when they got the Rockies for 4 straight. So looking at them kind of putting the Cardinals behind them, this is the kind of series that you want to kind of get back on track. And then this was really about a week or so after we got to see Michael Harris II for the first time. And I am here to tell you, with the Braves still having the second best record in the majors, right there behind the Dodgers, by the way, they're pretty much 1-2. I don't think it's coincidental that the Braves went on that run when MH2 came up from AA. So again, got the Rockies, you got Max Fried, you got Michael Harris II, who was good for you then and has been a part of this run now. Time to feast, Braves. Time to feast.
It is time to feast indeed. You got ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and T right here. But coming up next, though, don't go anywhere because we're going to tell you exactly how Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith's plan has come to fruition. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This is Locked On Sports Atlanta.